Oh, yeah.
All right, call the meeting to order. 6:02 p.m.
And we'll do the same. FinCom is in attendance with the forum.
Okay. So what is your plan, Angus? Will you show stuff as we go through, or should we try to?
Yeah, so we have, you have in front of you a complete, hard copy of the budget, as well as, the scorecard, for the articles. And the scorecard is, organized with date of review, so the articles that are on tonight's agenda for review are all on page 1. And, page 2 is everything for next Thursday. Then so on and so forth. So there's 5 pages for the articles, and that gives, they're all grouped by date. I assume we would go in the order of the operating budget, and we could take them in the order that they appear in the budget.
Sure.
Which is a little different than how they appear on the agenda. Unless there's anything you want to take out of order, I would note that Corinne is participating remotely tonight, so I don't know if we want to take up library early, just as a courtesy.
What do you think, Rob? Is that all right?
I think that's a great idea.
All right.
So the library budget, I'll put it up on the screen. It's okay, so it's a just a bottom line 2% increase, which is comprised of a 2% increase on salary wages, and 5% increase in library books and periodicals. The reason for the books and periodicals in order for the library to remain, I don't know if we're towards accredited, but basically recognized, that 19.5% of their budget needs to go toward books and periodicals every year. So it's a bit of a, if the overall number changes, like in salary and wages, I always make an adjustment to make sure that the expenses are exactly 19.5. Corinne puts it in that way, but as with most department heads, the guidance that Jenny and I give is don't build in the COLA, just build in, only tell us if you're proposing a new staff person, new hours, or some wage adjustment out of the COLA. So the department head budgets tend to come in either typically level, and then Jenny and I apply the COLA. We have kind of a master spreadsheet for wage budgeting. That way we're doing it based on, the same methodology. For instance, next year's 52.2 weeks, some years are 52.4 weeks, those kinds of nuances. We do that, and it just makes it consistent. So anyhow,
Can you, are you able to move the sheet over so we can see the last column? Or,
yeah.
Oh, there's nothing there. Never mind.
Yeah, no, the last column is just for the FinCom recommendation. So what I plan to do as we go through it is, when the FinCom refers an amount, just to write that in, and then tomorrow I'll feed that into the spreadsheet and recirculate this.
Okay.
So we can kind of keep a running tally of what the FinCom's, if there's any changes to the line items as we go through. So, Corinne, I know I didn't really give a very exciting presentation. If I want to give you the floor, if there's anything you do want to highlight, the library is doing quite a lot now with this 5-year plan. I think the committee, the FinCom, is aware that there had been an initial article request for a feasibility study for potential expansion. That is something we anticipate for the fall. That's not really on the table tonight, but since we've got Corinne here, really, Corinne, anything you want to say that you want to share on what you guys are doing, or where, what the committee might expect going forward, but and then if there's any questions people have on the operating budget.
Sure, thank you. I'm not sure I have anything exciting to say myself. The budget is fairly straightforward. And like you said, we're putting off the article until the fall, and putting together a committee to look at what the anticipated expectation is for the feasibility study.
And the feasibility study is about facilities or resources?
Oh, I apologize. The feasibility study will look at what kind of flexibility we have within the footprint of the building currently to provide study spaces and a meeting room. And it will also incorporate town hall across the street to see if it's feasible to use that space in some capacity. The board's preference and my preference is that we stay on the library campus and don't move across the street. But if it's not possible to create a meeting space, which is something that we really do need for programming and for community groups, then we're more than willing to work to use the building across the street to do that.
I think it's also a good opportunity for us, apart from the library, to look at
Yes.
town hall and
Yes.
see what we can do with it, you know, maybe for
Right.
other uses in addition to the library. So, and I did confirm that CPA funding is available for the feasibility study as well as the construction.
Cool, yeah, great, yeah.
Including energy upgrade. I found a really interesting article about CPA funding for the same thing, upgrading the historic building.
How much do we have?
2 million. I'm looking aside $1 million.
That'd be enough.
Yeah, I think it's really important that we not forget town hall.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think this is a good opportunity and
It's
also
wonderful.
part of the, do you want to talk about the traffic?
Yeah, on the Route 113 corridor study, the town hall library crossing was one of a half dozen identified kind of focus nodes. And our consultant TEC, over the course of the roughly year and a half or more that process went on, put together some conceptual plans for the corridor as a whole, but really focusing on a handful of identified crossings. They came up with what I think is a very exciting idea for that particular crossing, to basically abandon the current crosswalk and to move it to the west to where it would more align with the entrance to the frontage of the library. That would involve, you'd have to put in a new stretch of sidewalk on the south side of 113 to connect it back to the town hall. But it would get it away from that turn. It would make it much safer. And the crossing, the idea would be, it would be a rapid flasher beacon, pedestrian activated beacon. So it's just a concept plan. We did get some funding in the current state budget, just a $20,000 earmark, and we invited TEC to give us a proposal to take that concept to a higher level of designs. And they got us a proposal, we signed that, and that's going to involve some survey as well as just advancing that to a higher level of design. So that work is going to be done by the end of June. And that's a nice synergy between the library and the town hall, because whether those are ever formally connected programmatically, there's obvious interest in trying to make it as safe as possible for people to cross. And I think everyone probably recognizes that's maybe the crossing of the whole corridor that people feel the least safe today.
So I noticed that the year-to-date library expenses are running closer to the budgeted amount than a lot of these other line items we're gonna look at. So is 33 going to suffice for the coming year? Will it suffice for the current year too?
Yeah, and Corinne, what Rob's referring to, the year to date through February 11th is showing your expense line, not your book and periodical, your expense line at 29,917 or 90%. I think that's because a big chunk of that is paid basically as a one-time for your participation in the Merrimack Valley Library Consortium. And that's a significant share of the expense line.
That's correct. I think it's about 26,000 that we pay in July to the consortium, and that's our membership fee. So most of that line is used with the membership fee, and the rest is office supplies and things like that. I'm not concerned with that line as it is now.
Great.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the detail in the budget that Corinne had submitted, and of the 33, it's carrying 25,000 for MVLC membership and 8,000 for library supplies.
Very good. Thank
Yeah,
you.
that's actually interesting. I never knew that. So that would, if you did know that and you looked at it at the end of July, looked at the same metric at the end of July or August,
Yeah,
you'd fall out of your chair.
It has come up in trustee meetings. The astute trustees who have noticed.
So is there anything else that we need to discuss on this?
Will the select board vote first typically and then the finance committee? Or-
Well, the board-
The parliamentarian wants to know.
Sure, so the board has already referred the budget to the FinCom. When they did that, they reserved the right to,
Okay.
change a recommend, but I think unless they speak up, the budget before you is really for the FinCom to vote its recommendation.
Right,
which is-
so what we're doing is reacting to what's proposed to us, so do you have any reactions other than yes?
No, I make a motion that we accept the budget as proposed. Second.
And Ross would have to affirm, but I'm gonna say yes as well, so we're at least 3-0 for it. And Ross might in fact not even respond on this one, so.
He just-
good.
He just unmuted himself, so.
So you have to affirm that you're either for or against this by voice. If I understand Jim's instructions.
Yes, I'm for.
Thank you. So.
I'm for.
4-0 and.
Yep.
How do we know it's actually Ross?
That's right there, right there. You know, the internet.
That says Ross's
iPhone, right.
It's Ross's AI.
An AI.
That's right. Don't give him any ideas, please.
Ross's AI.
Thank you.
Thanks, Corinne.
Thank you.
Thank
Chris.
you. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
All right, what's next?
Okay, so back to the top of the order, moderator, that's a routine, basically level funded budget. And Jim had told me Casey during the budget process, and she affirms that the $40 was going to be sufficient for expenses.
Okay. I make a motion to accept the moderator's budget as presented. Second.
Okay, so all in favor? Aye,
I.
and we'll let Ross speak or not.
In favor.
Thank you.
Just so everyone, information wise, there's a new edition of town meeting time that's going to be coming out.
Yeah,
So the 4th edition, will be, I think they're starting the ordering process now.
so we'll get copies.
If you want a copy, let me know.
Oh, I definitely do. The one I take out of there, is 40 years old. No offense, Corinne.
Well, I mean, what's the cost? Is it expensive?
It's, I believe it's $89. It's not cheap.
Yeah,
But I will get a copy for the library.
Yes,
I'll get a
please.
copy for my office, Angus, Casey.
I can read yours,
Okay,
yeah.
Cool.
great.
We'll start with 2 copies, one at the library, one here.
That'd be a good thing, not that we do this sort of thing, but that'd be a good thing as we get to the 4th week of June and we see an extra $200 unspent in
Yeah,
someone's expense budget to buy a couple of copies before the year.
oh, sure, the select board should
Not that
have
we
one,
can-
and the FinCom should have one.
Yeah, so I think, we can reduce our turnbacks preemptively by,
$100 a book.
see you a copy of town meeting, Tom, and raise you 2 copies of town meeting.
so does the moderator, do we buy the moderator's copy as well?
Oh,
Technically, she only has $60 in her.
What about,
expense
So that's-
what about
the
the
issue.
200?
200.
That's her
That's her
compensation.
compensation.
$100.
so why don't we go 300? So she can buy a copy.
So my plan was to take it out of the town clerk's expense budget.
Perfect.
Excellent, done. That's why your budget went up so much, okay.
Went down.
Alright,
Okay, good.
so, next one is, select board, and, as I think people know, this has been a little bit in flux the last couple of years between town manager and select board due to various changes in kind of where we carry different expenses, as well as of, I think it's been, what, a year and a half or so since the board has had its own office. Has an office. So, what I've seen is that basically the expenses have really, you can see with the year to date, the operating expenses, have trended well behind what we had budgeted, because there's just not the same, use of, office supplies or things. I did carry, in the expense portion, a little over 5,000. As I look at the breakdown of that, it's, for things like the daily news subscription, MMA membership, Mass Municipal Association membership, expenses for the tree lighting. Last year we did, some, food for, cookies and things. So community event type things, the engraving for the citizen, of the year. If you needed to do a public hearing notice, for instance, like on the traffic rules and orders, those required notice. So I carried $250 for that. And then I did carry some money for, and I did actually carry $1,400 of that is for if you wanted to do a townwide mailer. That doesn't come up that often, but last year you did that for the Whittier. I think it's good to have some amount, something like that comes up. On travel, I really struggled with this because this board hasn't utilized that, but it would be totally appropriate for them or future board members to, go to a conference. If it's, lodging, mileage, you can do that. You guys haven't chosen to do that, but so I do continue to carry some money for travel and training and mileage. Historically, it hasn't much been touched, but I think it's important to keep that.
So this budget is down 33%.
Mhm.
And as opposed to other years, we don't have things going up or down because of shifts between where
No,
expenses. So,
no, it's really
so
just a matter.
if you were to look at select board, town manager and finance, we're probably talking about an increase on the order of under 2% in total between the three of them. So, I mean, it depends on how much you want to discuss.
Right, yeah, it really is.
Because I mean, we've got a long agenda tonight.
Yeah.
And I look at the next three as,
There's
I'd be
nothing-
willing to accept a motion right now, except the
So
next
could I
three.
just ask a question before you do?
Sure
that?
you can,
The
absolutely.
professional.
And I didn't expect my question to be, I didn't expect a yes answer, by the way. I expected someone to wanna continue
Count on me,
talking. Yeah, right, good. Bonus.
Professional and technical services, is
Mhm.
that, what is that intended for?
So, when I look back over, I have a spreadsheet with the last 5 years of what vendors have been paid out of that account. And and I'll read you through, and what you'll hear is they're all episodic. They're things that
Yes.
you don't know.
You never could have imagined.
Right, exactly. So American Arbitration Association, Donahoe Survey, Property Appraisal, Reinsterna, MISA filing fees. This is one I did carry some funds, because like for high hazard tree removal, MISA filings we're not exempt from that.
But you cannot know, like Rick said, you cannot know all the different instances that will come up. What you can know is that there'll be some.
Yeah, title insurance for Sawmill Brook. I think we ended up getting the article and maybe journaling that, but I had that in here. Police detail, when we had the Whittier Tech event, that was paid out of there. Water quality testing. So yeah, just kind of miscellaneous. I think if the board is more comfortable having a little more money, I think that would be fine. That based on year to date, there hasn't been a whole lot of utilization. So I guess it becomes, do you want it in your budget, or do you want, if something comes up, to potentially have to go to the reserve fund for it?
Yeah.
There's no recurring
Yeah.
expenses in there.
No, there's no recurring
It's
expenses.
just a number that you set
Right,
aside
but you
for.
Yeah.
spent 3,800 to date in that.
Mhm.
I mean, and years past, you've spent more than that. So
Yeah.
I think,
Even if it's 5,600, we can get money elsewhere if you need.
yeah, exactly.
Number two, look, that's 33% down on budget. We expect all other departments to do the same. Yes.
So again,
All right, so you feel like that's a comfortable number?
I think so,
All right,
yeah.
all right.
I think it's a real comfort.
Okay, so I make a motion to accept that select board budget as presented.
Second.
All in favor? Aye,
Aye.
and Ross can weigh in.
Ross is in favor.
Thank you. We're good.
Yeah, on the town manager side, the, you know, kind of expenses are routine. One thing that with the shift from Christine Wallace from Public Works into mine, that isn't new, but now I'm carrying basically travel and training for 3 full-time instead of 2. So that's, and then the IT expenses, I work very closely with Jake and with Jenny on that. A lot of those, we've really been able to budget that very close to what the actual costs are, because a lot of the expenses we have are contractual with licenses or service agreements.
Right.
So I feel good about that number. I do want to, we'll get into that in the finance expenses, yeah.
So I guess on the expanded responsibilities of the assistant town clerk,
Mhm.
does that come under this budget or is it all?
That's in the town clerks,
Okay.
yeah.
Right.
That's fine, budget.
Right. Any questions?
Any questions? Any motions?
I make a motion to accept the town manager budget as presented.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Ross is in
And
favor.
And so it's unanimous again. Thank you.
So finance department, a couple of interesting things going on here. One is on the annual audit. We do not know what that's gonna cost. The 23,000 for the current year is a true number. That was a contractual amount. We are, through our contracts with, Rosalia Clark, we're not renewing that. We went out to bid, and, the bids are due, I think a couple of weeks prior to town meeting in like, I think,
March.
March what? March 10th.
oh, they are, okay, so we'll have a true number on that. We carried 33. We hope that's enough. It is possible that will not be enough. We do think that, you know, we've kind of gotten a bargain, at least on the financial side, from our current vendor, who's been with us for at least a decade.
At least.
Yeah,
You said we're not renewing it. Do you have an option to renew it or is it just expired?
we could. But I think we've kind of, there's reasons I think we'd like to make a shift, and I think that's probably mutual at this point.
Okay.
So, and they gave us a gold star. You'll hear tomorrow night.
I saw that.
Yeah, I mean, it's about as clean an audit as I've ever seen, but
So the
yeah,
salary,
there's been a lot of water under the bridge, and I think it's there, just to be, there was a period a few years ago, we would have liked to make a change, but because of some of what had gone on in the immediate past, we didn't want to, because we didn't want it to appear to be retaliatory.
Yeah.
It wasn't, but yeah, so, but one thing that's happened that Jenny's paid a lot of attention to is there's been a lot of consolidation in the municipal auditing world, and some of the smaller firms that used to exist have been gobbled up. So there's really only a pretty small number of vendors who provide this service.
And most of the smaller firms are South Shore, they're not in this area,
Yeah.
So we carried a, you know, hefty increase, but I do want to say, until we open those bids, we don't know that that's going to be enough. We hope it will. The other dynamic in here is on the expenses. The reason you see a reduction there is because we have made the decision. I think you've heard me say before that there's 3 modules to ClearGov. There's the personnel budgeting, the operational budgeting, and the capital budgeting.
It's actually 4 and the budget.
And the budget book. So each of those has its own price tag, and we have decided we're going away from the personnel budgeting, which really hasn't been helpful. So that's what accounts for that reduction. When we signed a contract with them, we did get a bundle discount because we got all of them. So what I took out is the actual cost. It was like $12,000 for the personnel budgeting module, roughly. I took out that exact amount. If we learn that by no longer bundling, some of the others might eke up, we might have to come back and adjust that expense number a little bit.
when do you know that?
I'm sorry.
When would you know that?
Jenny just had a call with them on Monday to kind of, you know, we told them we weren't gonna continue and they kind of tried to cajole her. Or do like a post, like an exit interview of like why. So, I think we can get an answer on that
Yes, yeah,
probably
we're gonna-
before next week's meeting.
Oh, great.
So do you wanna hold off on this, or do you think we should go ahead and?
I think we should go ahead and then if it's,
Okay.
What's the bump in postage, just curious?
Yeah, I was curious about that too, is that just,
postage.
yeah,
So they've gone to biennial increases, so we see rate increases in postage in July and January. They're unknown, and it's just, you know,
It's not too dissimilar from 2 years ago.
right. I don't see, that's pretty much the main reason. I don't see anything else.
yeah, if you look, it was 21, almost 21.5 in FY 24. So far this year, it's a little over 12, and that's trending a little bit ahead of the year to date, 63.2% to 68. 22.5 is definitely, you know, it's not over budgeting that.
Because I think we'll overspend that line again this year.
okay,
One lucky thing is there's no election minus the local for next FY. So that we won't have 3
Yeah,
election mailings to deal with,
Right.
just the one.
The salary line is only going on 1%. Is that because you don't think you're gonna make your, expend all your money this year?
No, what that is, so there were some, kind of things that will look a little funny in some of the salary wage lines. That's because last year we had carried a certain amount for non-COLA increases. But when when we published the budget and the FinCom booklet last year, we didn't know where those would fall. And so, I think this was an instance where it carried a bit more and then, this is based on the actual.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So you've got an actual run rate now that you're going with,
Mhm.
as opposed to last year, maybe.
And
it's a
you're doing
little
your
bit-
color on that.
Yep, yeah, so that does reflect the COLA.
Yep,
Yeah. So,
this is the nature of budget.
Yep.
This is where stuff
Yep.
goes. So is there any more discussion on this item, which is going up 3% for the year?
No, I make a motion to accept the budget as presented. And obviously, as we said earlier, we may need to go revisit a couple of the items, depending on what the bid show. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And if Ross can join us,
In favor.
so unanimous, thank you.
all right, the next one we have is legal, and I think I do have some information I'm gonna put up on the screen that I think is pretty interesting and will help illuminate this. I think that, we keep basically every month we update our kind of legal trends going back to the beginning of really when former town council Mike McCarron retired and we went to outside counsel. We knew at that time this was going to be a difficult line to budget because we had no track record. So this is kind of interesting. We updated every month with the, we keep a running tally of kind of what the average monthly fees were per fiscal year, and then in the aggregate, and we even do a breakdown of kind of between general legal, labor, land use, some specific issues that come up that kind of can drive some costs. But what this shows is that year to date, the average fee has been about $53.35. But interestingly, we just, I think, in the last day, got the invoice for January, and it was another relatively small invoice. It was like just over 3,000, which when you look back is, and that's good news.
Right.
But so I do think, when I put this budget together, the assumptions I was making are here. Basically, at that time, we were trending 64.54 year to date. Now it's less because last month's bill was less. there is a fee increase, you know, on the hourly rate for KP. They sent us their notices, you know, 6 or 8 weeks ago that it's going up, you know, a certain percentage. So basically I applied what that would account for, what the projected, and then what the total. And then I kind of guesstimated what amount of the total legal we might be reasonably expecting to pay out of PEG funds, where we're gonna be getting into the cable franchise agreement. Some of the legal will be paid out of that, Elliott Fund, articles from time to time. So that's how I arrived at the proposed amount. But now that I have another month of data, and I forget the exact amount, but it was under 3,100. I think we could squeeze this budget. I'm seeing Chris nod shake his head, because
This is the wild card, you never know.
you never know, so, but I
You
just
get
want.
one bad month, it's gone.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. I mean,
January
look,
'24.
you see individual months where $11,500, $11,000.
The other thing we did is, like you said, we started putting a lot of these to other accounts too, so.
Right,
That helped to reduce it, otherwise it could be
yeah,
even bigger, but I would not reduce it. We
okay,
just know it's gonna come.
yeah, well, we do know there's some things
Yeah,
coming,
we know.
and that are here, that are
We can
active,
see a couple of trains coming at us, we just don't know the others.
yeah. So I just wanna be transparent with what's behind that, because I do, you know, obviously I recognize the year to date is, not, you know, we're only showing 30%. Part of that, like Chris said, is that is not the true cost. We've been really good and very, aggressive, in a good way, aggressive about assigning things to different costs. So for instance, during the procurement process for the Middle Street Bridge, we incurred a number of legal bills related to the bid documents, questions that came up during the RFP, so on and so forth. We paid those out of the Middle Street Bridge expense account. So the actual costs are higher than what you see in the expense budget. If we, you know, and we won't always have those other resources, so.
These are for unallocated legal costs, like this Elliott Fund or the bridge or
Yeah.
other things.
Yeah,
So that is significant, or a good bit higher, I won't say significant.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, I mean, actually, you can see, yeah, the total cost average is about 5335, and, yeah, I mean, you get tax title, you have different matters that have kind of, you know, contributed to that.
Any sense that we could wait on this one until another month goes by and perhaps we get the audit number in as well?
Hey, I mean, it's your prerogative. I don't have any objection to that. You know, we could put it to April 3rd and, you know, your last meeting, and
Let's just vote it while we're here, why revisit something this simple? I would have level funded if we.
It's not that simple, that's why. Yeah. So anyways, I guess that's a no. So we have presented to us a decrease in legal of 2%. Any motions?
I can make a motion to accept the legal counsel budget as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Ross?
In favor.
Okay, so it's unanimous, thank you.
thank you. Next one, town clerk, this has some changes other than COLA, and there's really a couple of reasons for that. One was to do with the non-COLA adjustments based on performance evaluations last year, but a primary driver was we made a significant change to the responsibilities and the compensation of the assistant town clerk. There were a number of reasons for that, but basically he took on responsibilities in basically 4 areas that had not been part of the job. One was capital program supporting the migration to ClearGov and supporting kind of maintaining that. So he's now become kind of my right hand on like maintaining the capital program, which has been an enormous help because there really hadn't been anyone doing that work other than me personally. Second, and that's an asset not just to me, but also to other departments like Public Works or Water. They know they can just go to Max, new information. He can update ClearGov, post information, and so forth. Second is records management, where he's kind of taking a leading role on both the records retention plan, working with Jim on that, as well as network server optimization. This has been an issue for a long time, as we have this labyrinth of shared drives that go back 15 years, and it's just a very time intensive thing to impose some order on that to make those drives more useful and efficient. Third is public communications. He's really now our point person on a lot of the promotional materials, outreach. He's got a good skill and interest with that. And then finally, he's taken on some responsibilities with regard to supporting the historical commission and the historic district commission, which kind of, those are committees that historically hadn't had any staff person they could look to for support. So that all combined, as well as the fact that, just to speak frankly, when he was hired, he was brought in fairly low. He has actually a master's degree and as in history. And as I look back, I'm like, I really didn't properly account for that at the initial point of hire. And so there was, and the board just went through the board review, and they were supportive of making a one-time adjustment to basically get him more, higher in the grade scale, because he was brought in at kind of step one, and with someone with his qualifications.
So again, this is just rolling forward based upon where we actually are right now.
Correct.
It looks
Exactly.
like an increase, but what it is it's how you would roll forward the numbers, you really.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep, that's right. Yeah.
So, unless there's something else someone wants to discuss on this, is there a motion?
I make a motion to accept the town clerk's budget as presented. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And.
Aye.
Hearing- There we go, unanimous, thank you very much.
And then the registrars, the significant drop there is really, like Jim said a couple of minutes ago, to do with there's not the same number of elections in the next fiscal year as what was carried in the current fiscal year.
So we had 3 last year, or was it 4?
Last fiscal year, I had 3, like combination of the the total actual calendar year is actually 5,
Okay.
plus 2.
So next year, presumably there'll be more elections.
Next year will be 1 election, because there's nothing this fall, and there's 1 town election next spring. But FY 26.
The year after.
We're in 5 now.
Yeah, this is for 26.
FY 27,
Yeah.
there will be 3
Is there any way to build a reserve, is what I'm gonna get at, because if you're now 51%, next year come back and
Right.
100%, it's gonna look idiotic.
The answer to the question is technically, yes.
But it's not, we have so many other things that are way more important than
Every
I
year.
think elections are important.
Every year
budgeting for elections.
Yeah.
Small chump change.
The state has to fund, because it's an
And
unfunded
get
mandate,
reimbursement.
they have to fund X amount of hours for state elections. So we get a reimbursement from the state. Some town clerk's offices have done revolving funds. And every year, town meeting takes that money that comes from the state and puts it into a revolving fund so the town clerks can use it. There's actually legislation that we're working on with Town Clerks Association to make that an automatic thing. So I think the long-term answer is yes, but don't worry about it for now.
But I think it's something we ought to look into, because a 50% decrease this year, to get back to that same number is a 100% increase.
Yeah,
That's gonna look terrible. Why didn't you plan for that? So I'm just,
yeah,
if you could have a reserve account for that, for.
I would venture to guess that not one person is gonna answer that question.
well, but next
Oh, I'll do
year,
it. I'll
next
bet
year,
you
when
first now.
Yeah, actually, one person.
When the whole,
That's town clerk budget year, right?
That ideally, the situation actually should resolve itself if the legislation that the Town Clerks Association has proposed goes through. Because we think it's crazy that, like, we get, what is it, the early voting fund?
So, yeah, early voting, you're allowed to reserve that.
So it's like one thing we can reserve, but the other thing that the state sent us, we can't reserve. So the idea would be to be able to, at least for one fiscal year hold that account and be able to utilize it within the next fiscal year.
If somebody's been using your phone, hold.
I think it's a fact.
See, Chris, it just strikes me that, the amount of effort that it would, not that it would take that much effort, but the amount of effort that it would take to justify what is really, I won't call it chump change. but
Okay, you
small
interrupt
money
me,
relative-
so I know I'm done.
So on this,
At some point.
on this 35% decrease in budget, do I have a motion?
I make a motion to accept the town registrar's budget as presented. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous, thank you.
All right, next one we have, at least in terms of how it appears on in the order on the page is Harbor Master. This is on the bottom of the next page, right at the bottom of the public safety page. This one is, basically the intermunicipal agreement we have with Salisbury. This is not the total cost of Harbor Master Services. What we've done each year for the 6 years I've been here is we pay a portion of the costs from the operating budget and a portion of the cost of the waterways fund, which is replenished each year with half of the boat excise goes into that. So the current intermunicipal agreement with Salisbury runs through fiscal 27, I believe. Actually, I have it right here.
And how's that been working out?
I think it's been working out well. There's definitely some discussions, like there's not been any problem. Yeah, it goes through FY 27. There's been some discussions, and the last time the board signed a new one, I think it was actually just last spring. Yeah, it was June of 2024 was when it was approved for another 3-year term. It does provide for an exit clause with a certain amount of notice. So we don't, I want to be clear, we don't have a problem. We do think logically there are communities that are geographically closer to us than Salisbury that probably could be a good fit. There's some historical reasons why this relationship developed, and it's worked well.
Yeah.
But I think, I talked to Dwyer, and, we're definitely aware that, something I talk about with my counterparts in the regional planning meetings is something that there could potentially be a better fit with a closer by community, but for now, it's not been a problem. We have a good relationship.
So is it 5250 kind of a firm number?
Well, that's what I proposed. That's
Yeah.
not the total cost, but the balance.
Is the total cost kind of a firm number? You have a contracted amount?
So the total cost used to be a firm number, and then it was changed a little bit to where so it's now more a function of the receipts they provide with a not to exceed. So for fiscal year 26, for pump out services, which is one part of the deal, it's a not to exceed $8,000, but that's not assured. That's based on the actual activity.
Okay,
And then in addition, we have a component for visibility and enforcement, which is a fixed amount of 2 equal payments of $1,250, so a total of $2,500 a year. So the maximum would be $10,500 for next fiscal year, of which,
yeah.
and that was really.
But like you say,
putting half of that in the operating budget and with the balance.
but a large portion of it it can't be known at this time. It's
Right.
almost like legal expense in a way, in that you probably better off being a little more generous than otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, we also have a Clean Vessel Act grant that we renew every year, where every dollar that we spend for pump out services, we get 75 cents back from the state. There's some lag time because we submit the receipts, they send us a check. Yeah, but we carry the total expense amount, but the actual expense is actually less because we're getting offsetting revenues because of the CBA grant.
And is it typical to have like, I see here today, we spent like 4,000 up today, is that like a typical cadence kind of thing?
Yeah, because it's been kind of the there's the.
There's not many pump out fees, right?
Right, no,
Ice pump up.
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. So in springtime, it will start, acting differently.
Mhm.
You know, it's.
And that really just reflects what's paid out of the operating budget, not what's paid out of the waterways.
Yeah, it's more complicated than what we're just seeing here, but it's not a lot of money for attention to the river, which, you know, some would argue we actually need a little more attention to the river. So any motions, any more questions, anything, any motions?
I make a motion to accept the harbor master budget as presented.
Does Ross, second this?
Yes.
First
or seconded, anything. Just now.
So all in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous, thank you very much.
The next one I have is, 3 pages. 3 pages later, under culture and recreation. We already dealt with the library. Next one down, we skipped over rec for tonight because we didn't know if they would have met. They have actually since met and we won't take that up tonight. But just so you know, the Park and Rec Commission they met on Friday night and they are in support of the budget that I put forward for them. So we have the Mill Pond Bandstands Historical Commission. And I don't know if we need the agricultural council where it's a zero budget, but.
I had a question on zero budgets. In the past, we have mentioned that we have a lot of committees that have either no needs or smaller needs, and we were thinking of aggregating that into town manager discretion to do that. Is there, I mean, is there any sense that that might be of use still? Given that anyone, open space, anyone, all these people with zero budgets might actually have a need for funds or whatever. No, we're thinking.
Yeah, no, we did. I think if there was a committee person who approached my office, said, oh, I wanna go to this conference, and it was like $75 fee, like, we would pay that out of the town manager expense line. Like, the fact that a committee doesn't have a budget does not mean that the town can't support them if they want continuing ed or do a workshop. So.
And they know that.
They know that,
Right.
yeah, I mean, so, yeah.
That's the question I had.
We could probably make that better known, but I think those who have needed to know.
Okay.
You know, but yeah, I mean, you guys should know that too. If you see a FinCom workshop, like, you don't need to feel like you're constrained by your FinCom expenses. We, if it's, you know, a modest amount of money, we can generally find the money. We want people to, you know.
Participate.
Yeah.
Continuing education.
Continuing education. Yeah, okay, great.
Okay, so we're on Mill Pond right now.
Yeah, so Mill Pond, there is, I do wanna just be clear on this. So I had put in the same $1,000 proposal in my proposed budget, not having received anything from the committee, despite multiple outreaches over the course of the last, you know, almost 2 months. I did follow up one more time with the chair, just to let her know, hey, this is coming up on Wednesday. I never did receive anything from you. So they did send me a proposed budget, was it yesterday that I got that? So it was so shortly before I was, you know, I looked at it, I have it. I didn't want to throw that in, and frankly, there's some things in there that I really wouldn't be supportive of carrying in this budget, things like benches or physical improvements to the facility, which really is not the role of the committee. So I think there's some kind of misunderstanding about like roles and responsibilities. So the purpose for the budget that I've proposed is to support the type of community event programming that they have done at times over the years. For a while, that was the Winter Carnival. At times they've done a movie night, things like that. I think is that's a use of that budget I fully support. The budget they did submit to me yesterday did propose $5,200. So I just want to make you aware.
So what do you want to do right now about this?
I've proposed 1,000.
So you'd like
asked
us
what's
to
before you.
respond to the 1,000?
Yeah,
Yeah, we've had similar stuff in the past, like Park and Recreation would submit a budget that, covered some stuff, didn't cover other stuff, and we had to kind of triage it and react to that. So I think, setting the 1,000 so that they're at least where they were before we entered the budget process makes a lot of sense. And then Angus can work. My point is Angus can sort out.
Well, and one of the other things I was looking through the year to date, it's 445. That's actually money that could really be journaled over to town building repairs. That what that was, there were some repairs that Brian Richard made to the cabin out there. It was charged against this account, but that, in my mind, that should be paid out of town building operating expenses. So even that 445 is a little misleading, because I could tell Jenny tomorrow, like, journal that over, and it really is a town building operating expense. It's not a Mill Pond committee expense. They didn't initiate those repairs.
Right.
So they really haven't used their budget.
They also have a revolving fund that they've used, right?
There is
So
a,
there is a revolving as well,
Yeah.
but I don't think that.
there's not much balance in there.
They
because-
used it for the bought some benches, right? This past year.
They used a gift fund.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's not the
Was that
revolving
the,
fund.
So as to the town manager's proposal with
the
1,000,
revolving?
Explain me.
Yeah, we talked about this and you said when we voted to move the budget on, we could readdress items.
Yeah, of course.
This was one that I would have addressed, except that you said they just sent the budget in
Mhm.
yesterday. First of all, that's silly, don't do that. It's way too late in the game.
I'm told the emails somehow,
Oh,
but
But everybody knows we're budget season, so okay,
yeah, I know.
excepting for that, I was gonna suggest we zero the line item out.
Mhm.
Because if somebody and any other committee listening does not respond and cannot submit a budget, that's what I think we should be doing. I wouldn't even plug 1,000 in,
Mhm.
but where it's in there now,
Mhm.
and they,
well, we also don't have to take it up right now.
well, there's no benefit in waiting, I don't think.
Well, unless there's something there that we're not looking at that Angus strikes Angus's fancy.
I mean, we've looked at it, all the things
Oh, you
that
have?
are not included, I mean, Angus and I have talked about it.
Okay. Okay,
He is onto the committee. I
so
think
you're
we're all-
comfortable just zeroing it out?
no, she's leaving it at 1,000.
I'm
Oh,
comfortable with either, I mean,
great, so what do you wanna do tonight?
well, it's your vote, Rob.
No, we wanna hear
Well,
what the
no, we
select
can
board
modify
thought.
out the 1,000, if you're interested in that component.
I heard I thought I heard someone saying, go to 0, and then I heard someone say, do 1,000, so which is it that's coming from your board to us?
Rick, that's coming from you.
I believe it down.
They did have a couple of programs on their budget, correct?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, so those might
Yeah,
occur.
fishing, so in the budget they submitted, they were actually only carrying $650 for a couple of fishing derby prizes and materials, movie licensing and rental. I just carried 1,000 in that line, and everything
Yeah.
else they had carried, I
Yeah.
had zeroed out, which
Yeah.
is just update kiosks, make them more dynamic, maintain trails,
Yeah.
add benches and tables, edge the driveway along the pond, ensure integrity of the dock. Those are facility expenses. Those are not committee expenses.
My point would be if they
Yes.
had not responded, which they did yesterday, I would have said zero it out. They do need some, and Angus previously had said
Right.
1,000, and we
Right,
said,
so,
okay, that's.
so 1,000 is coming to us, is there a motion?
So is there any interest in doing 650 if that's what they asked for programming? Rather than
Well,
1,000?
I think if they wanna do a movie night, that a license to show a movie publicly could be $650, just to get the license. So
They put 250 in for that?
they don't understand,
Alright.
And anybody can have needs of stuff that they can't specifically identify right now. 1,000 it is, that's what came to us from you, I'm looking at it right here. Any motions on the 1,000?
Just, the cultural council also does funding for the program, which they have not been good about telling town committees and town organizations. The Winterfest is one of those things that could be funded through the cultural council.
There you go.
That has 0 budget?
But they get state money.
No,
They don't, their money doesn't come out of the operating budget. Yeah.
What amount is coming over to us?
1,000.
1,000.
Thank you.
So before we vote, I just have a quick, I'll get to the motion, I just want to ask Angus, so let's say there is a legitimate, like, Mill Pond wants to make some nice benches or improve, where does that actually money come from? Would it be an article and then?
No, we have in the public works line, we have town building operating expenses, which is routine stuff, which would include like minor repairs. We also have town building improvements, which is, you know, so that's, and it's really comes down, the mill pond is part of Pipe Stave. It's under the care and custody of the select board. They are the custodial entity. The mill pond committee has a role under the mill pond management plan, but it's really signing off on use requests.
We've
It's
been
not.
moving to taking expenses to the person
Yeah,
that is
it's the
responsible.
facilities.
So
department
for
is-
facilities, we gotta get it under facilities,
Yeah.
even to the extent of Park and Rec, we've been doing that with Park and
That's
Rec
right.
expenses.
Yeah,
Get it to whoever's gonna really administer it.
that's right.
And
That's
the fact
exactly
that, right, so there's certain things that will go to the benefit of Park and Rec, or benefit to the mill pond, that are gonna be in someone else's budget, get used to it.
Yeah, and I think that some of these committees just need to understand, just because it's not in their budget, doesn't mean we're
They
saying
can't
we're not
answer,
gonna do benches, they just need to go
Right,
talk to.
that's the
Brian.
converse
Yeah.
of what I was raising.
Yeah.
There's stuff that they should be raising up, but it may not be, it doesn't necessarily need to be in their budget. And
Exactly,
they should have some control. $1,000 isn't a lot, given the fact that they can do a couple of things that might cost 500.
Mhm.
You know, give them 1,000 again and let's go.
Okay, so I make a motion to accept the, the mill pond budget as presented. Second.
All in favor? It's
Aye.
unanimous. Thank you very much.
So next year, could we make a rule that if people don't submit a budget, they, nothing proposed? I mean, it's.
You can make any rule,
It's
you
not
can have
much
any
money.
policies you want.
But they did it last minute. If they hadn't, I would have proposed
No,
it.
but-
After
No.
5 times of reaching out.
Then don't
Well,
reach
I
out 5
understand
times.
that.
That's what I'm saying. Next, this is it. People
Grand
live
Rapids says.
seven to charm.
All right.
Rick now has the latitude to
Yeah.
get a little crazy. Right. Careful in decisions, he's,
Knock it tough as he exits.
Yeah, all right.
what's next, Angus?
bandstand, level funded at 8,000.
Another wonderful program.
Yeah.
I make a motion to accept the bandstand, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, make a
I make
motion,
a motion
maybe
to-
we can sneak a buy-in.
To accept the bandstand budget as presented. Second.
All in favor? It's unanimous, thank you.
Historical commissions is level funded at $600.
And what is that spent on?
It has varied by year. I know back in, when you look at the year to date, in the FY 23, I know they did a lot that year with outreach related to the historical property surveys that were going on and mailings to residents. They hardly touched it in FY 24, and so far this year, they haven't touched it.
Mhm.
So we have 600 in front of us, which is level funded.
Yeah, I make a motion to accept the historical commission budget as presented. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous, thank you.
I have a question about that, so at what point? And I'm not suggesting that you've done anything different this year, but if there's nothing else. There's nothing programmatic that you expect, that you anticipate is gonna come up with said historical commission. I mean, at some point. Does there need to be a regular budget?
I don't think so. I think now that we've, you know, formalized kind of a staffing relationship through the
Yeah.
clerk's office.
Yeah.
I think it'd be a great thing, you know, for Max and Jim to talk with them over the next several months and maybe in the future, if they do have initiatives like that, you know, that can be funded out of the clerk's office or something. So
Right,
that they
right.
feel supported, but it doesn't need to be in their budget.
That's what I was
Yeah.
raising earlier, we've
Yeah.
had the conversation, I think it's a wonderful idea to move to that, there's
Yeah.
certain, like Rick just said it. If you can't give us a specific thing that should come within your budget, like a lot of the stuff that Mill Pond did shouldn't be in their budget, but there's stuff that they can submit.
Mhm.
But if you're not doing that, there has to be this pressure relief valve where they know what the process then leads to. Open space is kind of in a similar position. right?
Exact same.
So there's these ones where we keep reviewing it as if you can really know what they're gonna spend when they don't know what they might spend. That's where you need, I think, to have a little bit different understanding.
It would clean up the budget too, though.
It would clean up, and it also,
Items and-
it's also, we spent hundreds of $1,000s and we're spending most of the discussion about $2,600.
A good example is the first year I was here, there was a little extra money left over in the budget and my office paid for the digitization that had been started by the historic commission.
Yeah.
Oh, cause they were going for like CPA funding, and I was like, CPA funding for 2,000, and we just found the money and we did it, like, it wasn't worth the paperwork to do a CPA article.
But whoever just raised it, I mean, we could clean up the budget and still address it exactly under town manager's control, with the select board doing what you always do, which is providing oversight. So I'd prefer to kind of be thinking about doing.
It is the
in a
direction
lot.
we're going, just not all at once, but we
Not all.
definitely going.
But maybe next year we can kind of, there's at least 5 off the top of your head that you could say, look, let's just do it a little bit different.
And with my office with the cultural council and actually having staff for the cultural council.
Yeah, it goes to those meetings.
The state provides the cultural council allowance of 5% of their annual budget that's given to them by the state can be used for administrative fees, which is $285, which is more than $100 that they've been given
Right.
year after year. So it's one of those things that the money was already there.
Yeah.
We just kept it in the budget for some reason, but the state provides the funding for.
Well, at some point, someone wanted to see it.
Yes,
This is what happens.
Yeah.
These appendices of financials really get annoying after a long time. Anyways, what's next?
debt service, that's always a slam dunk. That we've been modern era.
Well, I don't know, tonight it seems like, guys want to tie, what
All
should we
right,
take?
I'll make a motion to accept the debt service budget as presented.
Okay.
You say.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous?
Nice,
Thank
nice,
you.
nicely.
But it's like those columns with can't divide by 0.
Right,
Alright, so, next one is Essex Regional Retirement, and obviously the gross increase is over 8%, the net increase is just, 2.5%, or is it 2 or 2.5? 2.5, because of the offset from pension liability stabilization.
which you actually can see down in the transfers.
transfers, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
right.
So one thing, basically just, the way this happens, so we get our assessment every year from Essex Regional. Jenny then does a calculation, because that's all based on an earnings, like basically a payroll audit that we submit at the end of September every year. And she then does an allocation between general fund and water based on what share of the total pensionable earnings in the prior reporting period were comprised of water to relative to general fund. So just to walk you through how this works, so the total amount we're responsible for is $1,074,252. That's not the number you see in here. Jenny then does this math and basically allocates that. So you see the 988,505. The water budget will carry the 85,747. So just so if you ever see that Essex Regional and are like, well, the letter says this and our budget says that, that's why some of it's paid out of water.
Okay,
Can I make a motion to accept the Essex County retirement budget as presented? Second,
all in favor?
aye.
Unanimous? Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We did, okay, so yeah, I carry the same $1,200, this is one that we really very rarely incur actual expenses, but every now and then we do. If there was interest in, you know. I was just.
How does the expense arise? Where's the 1,200 come from? We're not paying into.
We don't have unemployment insurance, so it would only be if we were.
So,
Good.
yeah, if somebody were to file a legitimate claim, then we'd have to pay. Thank you. Yeah, portion of it.
But we don't pay into the system, so the 1,200 would cover what, a claim of?
Yeah, well, so it goes for, it's like a year after they leave here, right? So someone could leave here, get
Coming back
a
against
new
your
job,
wages, yeah.
get dismissed from their new job, but if their employment history reaches back a year with us, we would still be responsible for a portion of that unemployment claim, even though we weren't the employer that let them go.
So on a practical basis, this is a total punt. Because it could be zero, it could be more than 1,200, it's just by occurrence, and you don't know when the occurrence is actually gonna happen. So it's just a reminder that we might be responsible. Not, and we're just carrying an amount that's just pretty much the same as a bookmark every year.
Pretty
When was
much,
the last, when's the last time you actually paid on it?
FY 22, $439.
Yeah, there you go, so,
Yeah.
yeah, so again, this is one of those very odd ones where you may have a transaction. This is almost just a bookmark.
Yeah, because I mean, you would know, if you're gonna incur it, or you have the potential to incur it if you were to lay somebody off. So that may or may not coincide with budget season, but it would.
Well, but like I said, someone could leave us voluntarily, but then be laid off from their next employer. And if we're within 12 months history, we're part of.
They come back.
That's the more likely scenario.
Yes.
So they come back, if they, start drawing unemployment, they look back to
We
the
don't have to
prior
write
one.
one off.
Right,
Somebody else could.
yeah, right. So this is more of a bookmark than anything else. So we'll keep the same amount of money.
I make a motion to accept the unemployment compensation bookmark budget as submitted.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous?
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, next one after that is group insurance or health insurance. We did get a confirmed rate increase of 9.92% on our Maya insurance. And most of the employees on health insurance are on the Maya Blue Cross, one of the Blue Cross offerings. Some are on the Teamsters, and the Teamsters, we by contract, we know ahead of time what those rates are going to be. So just like we do every year, we have health insurance budgeting workbook that I work on with the treasurer and based on actual headcount, actual rates, who's on family plans, who's on individual plans, 35% employee share, 65% town share. Once we get the rates, we, you know, so basically all of the numbers are based on true headcounts, but obviously with an organization, you know, things change, headcounts change, people's family circumstances change. So I have historically carried some contingency, which I've continued to do here. I didn't tie it to like a specific set of assumptions. I'm more built in as roughly at 12.5%. That is an amount that isn't specifically spoken for right now, but we do have, I believe, 3 vacant full-time positions right now as we speak, 2 in dispatch, 1 in police. So if we fill those next month, if they come in on health plans, maybe they do, maybe they don't. So anyway, there's just as there is every year, there's some contingency built into that. That's how I arrived at the 577, 462 that you see in the budget, which is a roughly 9.5% increase. And then on the water, this amount, the 43,105 is what you'll see when you see the water budget.
You already have the rates for next year? That,
Yeah, we got them about, what, 2 weeks, a week and a half ago? Yeah.
So on this worksheet, it says 9%?
Just because I didn't carry the
Oh,
decimal.
okay.
Yeah.
And so group insurance obviously refers to health insurance.
Yep.
Yeah.
So last year, I know there was some discussion over whether the contingency amount was too much, too low. So it represents about 12.5% of the calculated amount. And that's for employees switching from individual to family, filling vacant positions, or just routine personnel turnover. Someone leaves who's not on a plan, someone's hired who's on a family plan. In terms of the per employee, it's pretty interesting. We have this kind of Cadillac plan that literally for as long as I've been on there's never been anyone on it. But technically, if someone was, the town share would be 31,650 a year. No one's on it, no one's ever been on it. The one that you can see most of the people are on, it's this Blue Cross, you know, high options. That's roughly a $26,000 per, that's the town share, for a family plan.
That's 60% match.
65%, yeah. So. And then the Teamsters is a little weird because, they don't have family versus individual, it is what it is.
Hmm.
So if someone has a family, they're actually gonna, do a little better on the Teamsters plan. But if they're an individual on the Teamsters plan, we're paying a lot more than we would if they're on the, but you can see as of right now, there's only 2 employees out of all of our union employees, only 2 of them are on the Teamsters. There's other union employees who are on Blue Cross, so.
So this is also a line that historically you ended up with turnbacks from.
I think that's fair, yeah.
And again, what we're doing is we're budgeting and perhaps with some level of expectation that we would certainly not go over, perhaps we'll go under.
Right.
But, I do think, and Jenny and I talked about it prior to coming into this meeting, I think, if people felt based on historical turnbacks or whatever, if you felt we were being too conservative here, I wouldn't push back if you wanted to trim this amount a bit, and maybe like at the end of the process, if you want to get to a certain bottom line of the overall
Right.
budget and you're looking for
That's
cut, I would not,
right.
I would want to carry some contingency, but.
Absolutely, but like
Yeah.
what you just said, we discussed the need to make a first pass and then
Yeah.
perhaps look back down below.
If you're looking for places to trim, I think we could trim this reasonably,
Right. Right.
by, 20 or even 30,000 and probably
Oh,
not
that
have a
much.
problem.
I
think
would
so.
go that much.
Oh, yeah. All right.
That's what Jenny said.
Yeah.
So pretend you heard 10.
Mhm.
Okay, so about this, line item,
Okay, I make a motion to accept the group health insurance budget as presented.
Do we want to leave room to revisit it if?
oh, we're leaving room to.
You could always bring it back to.
Yeah, this does not lock,
Can I second?
yeah, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous, thank you.
Alright, and then the last section of the operating budget for tonight is insurance and bonds. This has actually become a pretty simple budget. This breakdown I've put up on the screen is basically what this covers is the employee bonds that cover basically those employees that handle money are bonded. Police and fire accident insurance. Our Maya policy wraps all together, workers' comp, public official liability, and property casualty are all kind of a single bill. And we do carry separate policies for the soldier sailors building, the park and rec building, and our notary liability insurance. That was a new requirement as of, I think, 2 years ago that Maya said we would have to carry a policy if we want town employees who are notaries to be able to provide notary services for other than town business. So we do carry that policy. It's a modest expense. And then a portion of that is allocated to the water department because they have a certain share of the town's assets that are insured, so.
Park and rec building, we're gonna be getting rid of.
Yeah, but,
Small money, I get it.
Yeah, I think next year, I mean, it's not.
We're about $42 next year.
Yeah, it's, so it's,
So I think it's, I mean, it's not big money, but how
I
much?
think it's about $700 for that policy. I think for the park and rec, it's like $700 a year. So, one thing I want to really credit Rebecca in my office. She has been very, very proactive on pursuing credits. There's all kinds of things that Maya offers that if we are doing, if our employees are doing workplace safety trainings, and if we're documenting those, we do get discounts, and she has been very, very proactive about that. She loves saving money, she loves flipping coupons, she just loves it, and so.
Time needs it.
So I do think that, that's gonna play out. I haven't backed out money for credits because I don't wanna squeeze it, too much until there's a track record, but I do think in the current fiscal year, we're gonna see, I think it's low five figures, I think it's over $10,000 of credits that she's,
Really?
yeah, like it's not a trivial amount of money.
And she sends it out to employees that.
Yeah, so like Butch does, toolbox talks where he's giving his guys a safety lesson and he documents that. She sends it to Maya, and the more of those you do, you get a half point. So,
Nice.
I was curious about the, it's interesting how small the bond, amount is.
Yeah.
Is that based on history? Is that?
no, it's based on the amount of money. So like the treasurer is bonded at a high level.
Yeah.
The clerk and the assistant clerk don't handle a lot of money. They're bonded at like, I think, 100,000.
The lowest level possible.
Caitlin's bonded at like quite a bit, as am I, because even though I do have permissions. Like I could call Cambridge Trust and authorize a transfer of funds, do that, but I could do that. So she and I bonded at a very high level.
Yeah.
And then,
What about
other
the
staff,
library trustees?
they're not bonded officials, because they don't have any independent authority over that. The treasurer is still, it still has to go through the treasurer, yeah.
I make a motion to accept the insurance and bonds budget as presented.
Second. All in favor? It's unanimous.
Now, the parliamentarian has noticed that we haven't voted on cultural council or community preservation committee. I know that cultural council is 0,
Oh, good point, Jim.
but it should be like formally.
Well, to acknowledge you, well,
Yeah.
there is nothing.
Big CPC, I didn't see that either. So.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's not in the operating budget,
Yeah.
that's really an article, so that was probably an oversight of mine to put it even on the list, because it's an article.
Yeah.
So,
Question mark next to it.
the community I'm sorry, the cultural council was 0.
So cultural council, the way I look at this, I keep things on as long as they're in the history as having activity. This one, there's been so many years with nothing budgeted, nothing expended. I could just like hide that row and just take it out of the budget, because,
But if it's gonna show, I think they
yeah,
should be acknowledged and voted,
yeah,
so there's no question.
yeah, I mean,
But won't we
Yeah,
hide
if-
it and not have it on there at all?
And that's what you wanna do, because
That's what I would prefer to do.
Yeah.
yeah, I think I'd be fine. I've done that in the past with other, we had, I think there was something else in there that. The cable advisory committee used to be, and it was 0 every year, and I just started hiding the row, and it's still in my spreadsheet, but it's not visible because it doesn't affect any of the numbers, so. And I can definitely, I'm 100% certain that in the I think my 7th budget, there's never been any year where there's been anything either budgeted to or expended from the cultural council line. There's just been 0 activity. Or not budgeted to, no, I'm sorry, it used to be budgeted 100, but there's not been a dime spent out of that line in at least the 7 years.
All right, well, let's start with that.
All right, so we'll just hide that one.
Okay, so maybe formally, should I make a motion to remove the cultural council expense line from the budget?
Great.
Like second.
Any discussion?
Well, I mean, if it's not submitted to us, if they're not gonna submit it to us, we don't have to take a vote on it.
Or we're removing it.
But we're removing it. Yeah.
That's, you decide that, we don't.
Is that true, Angus?
Pretty much,
I'm
I didn't see it.
gonna remove it.
All right,
Thank you.
nice try, Jim.
The parliamentarian says we have authority.
He's trying to take over his chair. All right, so we're moving on to warrant articles.
Yep. You should all have a hard copy of the scorecard. I've also got it up here, and I've got the articles packet that we can pull up the back up on any of these as
This is where Jim can become very, very useful to us.
So what you just told.
He's always used, but I said very, very.
Get them low,
First article said Pentucket School Stabilization Fund drawdown. Proposed at 200,000.
And what does that mean to balance that?
The balance, in the school stabilization,
Yeah,
Yeah,
$472,000.
and that's before the 200, that's
Yes,
before the 200.
Yes,
So we got like a year left or so,
Year and a half.
year and a half. So on this, remind me, have you guys taken votes on this? No, so
No,
you
we
got,
don't vote on the, on this, no, we haven't.
right,
Yeah.
right, so you're gonna do that and then we'll react to what you do,
Sure.
if I recall.
I'll make the motion so we can have a discussion, yeah, make a motion to, accept the $200,000 for the Pentucket stabilization account.
Second.
Discussion?
Yeah. We talked about establishing a separate account for both Page and possibly Whittier. So this kind of, it gets blurry because you've got money in this account. At some point, it should just be a school stabilization, eliminate this.
Not Pentucket specific.
Right, so if is that an article this year to have a?
we didn't, because we felt, we did talk about it when, before the warrant was closed.
I thought it was gonna be one, yeah.
Well, the board had talked about it and we had, talked about, I think at a staff level, you know, proposing a new,
Right,
either elementary school stabilization fund. But I think,
but it's not gonna happen this time around.
no, but I think it started to feel a little bit like, creating an accounting issue without necessarily,
If what? What's it?
like if there was let's say we had multiple school stabilization funds.
Well, you have one specific Pentucket school, it was passed specific for Pentucket school.
She was actually
The-
passed as a school.
Yeah,
stabilization.
no, I think it was.
it wasn't because of the new,
original.
No, the political intent was because of middle high school, but.
the rationale was,
Well, I don't know about the rationale, but the statute under which it was created it's a school stabilization fund, so it's been kind of, I think it's been called this, but that's not like like in the chart of accounts, it's the school
it just
stabilization
says
fund.
school.
So-
That was the intent, there's no argument.
right, but if it's allowable, this becomes almost like a capital expenditure reserve fund where, you know, you could have funds in it and decide how much you want in there and for what purpose. So for instance, as an example, you could say you want to draw down from that fund, but you could also be adding into it, so or so inclined.
Mhm.
I would just say that I think that they're really separate questions, right? I would almost say the 475 in there was my understanding rationale specific to covering costs coming out of the construction of new. That doesn't stop us from in the fall resetting that thing so that we start putting some funds against the elementary school. All I'm saying is, in my mind, we should continue what we were doing, was drawing down.
I don't have a
At
problem
least-
with the 200, I just want to know what the long-term picture.
Exactly, right.
The other 272 might be convenient to roll into a school
You could
stabilization.
decide to stop or you could just leave it and start adding to it.
Right.
I think, Chris and I are agreeing, we just aren't saying it the same way, and so I think as far as, I would like to continue doing what we were doing based upon how those funds were set up, leading to the question that we can take up in the fall or later about setting aside funds for what we know is gonna be coming sooner or later.
It's actually,
We're probably a little bit late. Huh?
it's actually an article now.
There is?
Right, number 14? Yeah, I was gonna say, has that been removed? Because I was.
No, it's just come out, I put all those on April 3rd to give us the most time. To
But
give
it is
us
in
the
the-
most time. Yeah, to free cash to school stabilization
Right,
is, an article.
so
And
we can
I
do
haven't, come up with a number to recommend yet, and I wanted to give myself the most amount of time to.
Okay, I'm just saying that has to be considered in the context of this
Yeah.
at some point.
or
No, it's all schools, and you're transferring money in one pocket and out of the other, you just have.
except if you have gotten used to taking out the 200 specific to the.
I'm not saying we change that at this meeting, I'm saying
Right.
come the fall, I think these two have to get integrated a little tighter.
Yeah, or you maintain it just like you maintain a capital expenditure list where you have specific items. There'll be 275 left specific to the school we just constructed, and then we'll start adding against page, that's all. It's the same thing. It's just.
But we're gonna vote on this spring, not in the fall. Right?
It's 200 right now.
No,
I'm just-
no, establishing the.
Right.
Angus is gonna come back and he's gonna say, as it relates to
Yeah.
page, we should start thinking about X. How are we gonna get to X? All I'm saying is you can treat them discreetly, that's all.
Right, and
Yeah.
Whittier is
Well,
also.
why would we vote on the 200,000 tonight? Why don't we just vote it all on April 3rd when we get the whole big picture? Because we may change things. I mean, we may decide.
Because you can still draw down this and you can, it's net, the net result is what you're looking for.
Why is that advantageous? Well, why is,
I think from a visibility standpoint, it's
Very,
well, from a tax rate perspective,
Yeah.
right? It's lower in the tax rate, but why would
no,
that be?
but also there may be people that like me think that those funds were set aside specific to offsetting the
Kentucky.
expenses related to Kentucky. Whatever.
yeah, it strikes me, Jim, that a town meeting then gives us an opportunity to explain to people what's going on. You know,
When you
what
start,
we're trying to achieve, you know, looking out to the
it's
future.
more discreet, it's more concrete to say, by the way, we set aside this, it was supposed to be for this, we're drawing down, that's ending. Now there's this new thing. Here's the new thing. When you start mixing and matching numbers, people forget, they can't keep track of it. It's not what they do. We're doing the same thing with the pensions, by the way. We have amounts going in, we have amounts coming out.
Yeah.
It's a way to understand it.
Good job.
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, I mean, we're gonna have the same discussion soon with the other 275 that's in there. So, yeah.
No, the next discussion may be about an additional fund that's specific to page.
Yeah.
Might not have relate to the 275, that's what I'm saying.
All right, any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
So you passed along to us the 200,000.
Yeah.
Any more discussion? Is there a motion?
The motion runs?
Jim's not making the motion.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I make a motion to accept the $200,000 Kentucky School Stabilization Fund drawdown. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. Thank you.
All right, who wants to do the rationale?
Not Jim.
Oh, that's a slap in the face.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, he went along with the vote. I don't think it's his favorite thing. So, Ross, you feel like writing rationale on this one? Sure.
No sunset required, correct?
Sunset,
No sunset.
I'm just gonna say let me fun.
All right, Article 4.
Pension stabilization drawdown, this is, based on the multi-year model that, Rob and Jenny, updated earlier this year, once we had the updated, Essex Regional, assessment and projections, right? Yeah. So that's a calculated number to arrive at a net bottom line 2.5%.
So this is net versus two individual. Like we're doing with the school fund, right?
There's, Jen, there's two lines related to the pension, one
Yeah.
going in, one
Yeah,
coming out.
two separate articles, so
Yeah,
that's
two
number 8.
separate, yeah.
Okay,
We've been adding to, now we're starting to draw down. This is the first year we're drawing down.
all right,
correct? The sole intent is to even out the expense over a period of time. Like we're gonna do with page school.
Make a motion, drawdown of the pension stabilization fund for $53,775.
Sorry. No further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Guys, do we have,
I make a motion to accept the
thank you.
pension stabilization fund drawdown, $53,775. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous. I'll write this one. No sunset again. Correct?
Correct. Next, transfer funds to the pension liability,
Yes.
transfer funds to the pension liability stabilization fund.
Remember, we have two transactions.
Yeah.
Hand in hand.
Yeah, hand in hand, thank you. By the way, source of the funds,
Is,
Free cash.
just check, free cash, yeah,
thank you.
is what I proposed, yeah.
Make a motion to transfer $131,596 to the pension liability stabilization fund from free cash.
All in favor?
Thank you very much.
I make a motion to transfer funds to $131,596 to the pension liability stabilization fund. Second.
All in favor, it's unanimous. I'll write the rationale. OPEB, our favorite account.
Proposed transfer of funds 25.5 from, free cash to the OPEB stabilization fund, and this, I had initially penciled in a number, and then Jenny had reminded me that a year ago, there had been discussion of 25.5 being, kind of.
Consistent.
For the, how long?
We
now?
had to agree,
Good numbers.
it's a good number of years.
Good number of
but,
years.
I'm hoping that,
Yeah.
things will improve and they won't keep us to that. We can go back to the original, what is
Yeah.
it, 10% or 5%?
Yeah,
whatever.
like, yeah, it's like, yeah,
But for now, we did agree to that so that they could keep the discount rate.
Yeah, so these aren't funds that get lost. These are funds that go from one bank account to another bank account, if you will. And in the future, in the end, the real amount of money that you're spending becomes obvious to you. So this is just a holding action, really. It's just saying, I don't want an account A, I want an account B. Doesn't cost us.
Oh, correct.
Right.
Oh, I get what you're saying now. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, the money's.
Yeah, so, right, and in the end, you find out more as you go through life, and like Jen is saying, we could ease back on that, but this is really. This is really funding that is solely meant to put us in a place where we're covering potential expenses. With the expectation that we'll always be in that reserve range. You don't ever come down really from that reserve range.
The assumptions change.
Yeah, something's changed over time, they get adjusted, but it's floating at a pretty high level.
Yes, 97%.
97%.
Highest in the state.
Highest in the state. New reports down around 2 or 3%. What that means is that they'll not have they'll be dealing with this as an operating expense, where we'll have made provision for it, so.
Next time we have a town employee that wants to go to Newbury Port, we're gonna remind them.
Yeah. That's gonna help secure their future, really.
Exactly.
So we've got that in front of us now, 3-0 from you. Jim, did we take any?
No,
action?
we got it. I had it.
I presume.
Mr. Motion.
Rick, why don't you make the motion?
I'm happy with Chris doing, he's doing a great job.
Thanks. Make a motion to transfer to the OPEB fund $25,500 from the stabilization fund.
Second.
From, from free cash.
Free cash,
Oh,
right,
okay, okay, for free cash. Correct.
Second.
All in favor?
Thank you.
I make a motion to transfer funds to the other post-employment benefits, OPEB stabilization fund from free cash of $25,500. Second,
All in favor?
aye,
It's unanimous. I'll write the rationale.
All right, next one is the PEG reserve revenues. This is a required annual vote. I've kept the amount the same as it is in the current fiscal year. In the articles backup packet, there is some insight into the amount, into the activity year to date. One thing, I think two things I would note with this. One, we have been working with legal counsel, at least preliminarily, on the process of renewing the cable license agreement with Verizon, which comes due in September. And part of our conversation with them, they reinforced that under state statute, the PEG funds are actually squarely and unambiguously under the authority of the select board. That was something that culturally we would kind of defer to the cable advisory committee. People may recall that up until a few years ago, we had a member of the select board who was not only on the CAC, he was the CAC, because for years and years he was the only member. So it was kind of like a distinction without a difference, but then since that ended, there hasn't been a select board member on that committee for a number of years. That committee doesn't actually have any authority over those funds unless the select board delegates that authority in writing. So we've had some discussions about whether there's any kind of value add to having a committee oversee a lot of the expenses that come out of that are very routine. They're really to cover the cost of, you know, producing videos for meetings like this and getting them up on local cable. So I think that, you know, the idea would be to put more of those funds kind of, you know, I guess have them not under the oversight of the cable advisory committee, which is kind of just a pass through. But also one thing I've been talking about with Wendy for a number of months and have been thinking about actually for several years is a number of our counterparts have a cable manager position as a staff position that is funded entirely from PEG revenues, whereas we have a vendor agreement who does that. I think there's a lot of benefits to migrating that to a staff position, both for kind of stability for both parties, because we certainly rely on that relationship. It's very, very valuable. And so that is something that I would like to propose to, and it's not anything you are asked to vote on, but just to make you aware that because this would need to be fleshed out with the select board and a job description and wage schedule and all that would need to be approved. But I think operationally, the cable manager is basically an extension of our operations. It's integral to our what we do. And
It's a natural outcome of
Yeah.
all the cable wiring that we've done, you know, Comcast.
yeah,
Yeah.
so in talking more with my counterparts in some of the neighboring towns and realizing that they're all like, oh yeah, that's just, here's the job description of that person. I was, you know, that's the direction I'd like to go. So I do think that would benefit from having at least a portion of the funds that are funding the kind of routine operations under my oversight rather than a committee, because a staff person would.
Committee has been search of a mission.
Yeah.
So appropriation of PEG reserve revenues, 40,000.
Mm.
Are there other revenues that aren't being
Oh, yeah,
appropriated?
yeah, there's a balance of over 200,000.
Right, so whose control is that under?
The select boards.
Right,
Yeah,
so this is moving funds from where to where?
it's not moving funds from anywhere, it's
Just authorization.
setting a cap.
Right.
On, that would be the maximum that could be expended under that account in that fiscal year.
So is that adequate based upon
More
what
than
you
adequate, yeah.
based upon what you just said?
So the article thing, it's not an appropriation, it's an authorization.
Yeah, although I do think the language of the statute, I think I used the word, I think it's,
You have to appropriate.
I
have
think it is
control.
an appropriation, but it's not.
But
I'm just gonna
we should-
read verbatim the line.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion for appropriation of PEG reserve revenues under Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Sections 53F, 34 for $40,000.
It's actually F and 3/4. if you wanna believe that.
3/4, 3.75.
So Angus, did you get the spreadsheet that?
I did, yeah.
So I'm looking, they had $5,000 for one-time expense for furniture. Do you know what that is?
I didn't provide that because I'm not looking at that as
No,
like,
okay,
yeah.
so, but so where the 40,000 came from them based on this though, do we actually?
It didn't actually, it came from, it's the same amount in the current year, so I had put this in before I got that earlier
Okay.
today.
All right.
So I do think that it would be good either tonight or a subsequent meeting if the board agrees with what I'm saying about kind of differentiating between CAC oversight and select board oversight via the town manager. I feel like something like, you know, maybe $5,000 under committee oversight with the balance under, you know, my oversight with other, like, the select board's direction, something
Alright.
like that.
All right, so let's vote on the amount and then consider that. Yep, second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
I'm still trying to sort of, to me, it's just a fine one. Actually, I'm fine with it, that's,
What's your,
no, I'm just looking at the pattern of expenditures, so I'm just curious, but,
So what are you guys looking at?
oh, I happen to be
The articles,
looking at, I'm actually looking at the,
Prior activity.
that list of ATM, SDM articles that is in the Dropbox. With the details.
Yes,
Last-
this
last
is
5
here,
fiscal
this
years.
is. This, good.
But as far as what Angus is saying about the going forward, you don't have concerns about.
No, no,
all right, so you're.
Technology.
Well, of course it did.
Yeah, you have to hit it 3 more times.
Did you say
It's back to the-
I did,
All right,
I did.
all right.
Yeah, so this is the articles packet that was sent out back, right, I think around February 7th or so. So this shows the actual activity in that account the last, 5 years.
Yeah, it's interesting, yeah, just under 14, just under 12,
Mhm.
a little under 18,
Yeah, I think it was so
15,
large this past year.
36.
Cause there was
Yeah.
a server replacement,
Yeah, okay.
the 11,000, so, yeah, 40 is.
And how much of that was being initiated by you and how much was?
It was all them.
So is Telview,
Advisory.
Well, it really was Adam.
Yeah, Adam.
I mean,
Most
most
of
of
Adam.
Okay,
so-
I mean, it went through them,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but they,
Yeah.
he initiated.
So you can see
that.
Adam's
And-
line
and
and
is
then
that-
the server would come from Adam.
so the
Yeah,
company
he
Telview was.
scoped it out,
Right,
he,
exactly,
yeah,
yeah.
It wasn't in his line though. That, there's some issue with that amount. He said that, I don't know, something to do with contractor or some.
Oh,
Like,
there
it
was
wasn't
something,
actually-
there was an issue with his 1099 because there was an amount that was reimbursed to him where he had paid something that, and
And
it showed
it was
up
shown on
as an earning.
1099.
And we got that fixed and then we
Yeah,
got
right,
it corrected
okay.
1099, but.
So is that 23 correct then for him, or is that still reflect the?
The reimbursement.
So,
Yeah.
that probably includes the reimbursement, because
reimbursement,
he submitted his reimbursement on
Right.
his.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's correct,
Whatever,
but
yeah.
we could break that, I could go back and pull his records and break.
And break it
that
out,
if you
so
want
it
to.
shows real wages
Yeah.
you're supposed to.
Yeah.
So I wonder if 40,000 is way more than is needed
It
between the
probably is.
server and that.
Yeah,
Do we wanna reconsider?
But what is the consequence of it being other than 40?
Well, I just feel like, people wanna know what's that for, and
Oh,
we won't be able to say, especially if now select board's owning it, I wanna.
Well, 25 year to date, is only 9,200, is that correct?
yeah, I mean, this is a few weeks, this is from January 22nd, so it's a month old, but.
Yeah. I mean,
So
we
the
can
company
subtract-
Telview last in FY 24, Telview, is that the servers, the suppliers? Okay, all right.
So we,
Can I make a friendly amendment, Tyler?
yes, oh. Yes,
I would modify it to 20,000.
20,000, yeah.
I think 20 is too tight,
Yeah.
yeah,
especially because if
Look at the
we're,
previous years though.
well, but if we're interested in, migrating to a staff position, I don't know how that would play out in terms of hours, rate. I'm not looking to, you know.
How quickly is that happening? 'Cause we can readdress this in the fall if you get to that.
I have a draft, I have a job description that I got from Roland, that I think would take some tweaking, but it's pretty good.
I would say this spring, right, definitely,
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking for July first,
yeah.
but I don't have like a number of what that would.
So what do you think is appropriate then, 25?
I think 30, 25 or 30, I just don't really see a need to squeeze it because
Right,
it's
you
just
don't have to
an
spend.
authorization,
Yeah,
it's
it's just,
not, yeah.
Yeah, I
So,
think 30 is a good number.
and it's
Because
less
the
than
friendly
last year.
amendment.
Okay, all right.
How's
Do
that?
you want a second?
Yeah,
More
second.
friendly, okay, all in favor?
Aye.
So you're passing over 30 to us?
Yeah.
Yes.
Any further discussion or questions or? We have a motion?
I make a motion to mirror, Chris's, motion with the $30,000 amount.
There, that's great.
So all in
In a
favor?
few words.
All in favor? It's unanimous, thank you.
So do we want to vote on what Angus said?
Maybe let's flesh it out so they can have, the board can have something in front of them.
We got rationale and sunset. Do they have to sunset this now?
No,
No. It's still
There's no sunset, so who wants to do the rationale, Dennis? You wanna do something with that?
Yeah, I'll have to,
Well,
research.
yeah, exactly. So when people write rationales, by the way, there's always someone, staff, that you should feel comfortable getting insight from. And it could be, you know, someone like Angus or Wendy, it depends on the area.
oh, one other thing,
What?
we're looking at this as the source of funding for legal fees to renegotiate the Verizon.
Yeah, oh, right,
Apparently
right.
every 6 year
So it's
thing.
40,000.
So I don't know if that's 1,500.
It's 40,000.
Can I make a friendly amendment
Yes.
to the friendly amendment?
Please.
Can we just delete that last motion? What's the proper way to handle this, Jim?
Probably would be to make a motion to approve 40,000.
All right,
I'll make a motion
Thank
to
you.
approve 40,000 for the band.
Thank you, Angus.
Second.
all in favor? This is my final.
That was a good
offer.
catch.
Did you guys vote yet?
Cause you guys would have really suffered for it later.
So did you say yes?
Yes, we did.
You voted, okay. Do we have a motion? You're gonna mirror,
Yeah, I make a motion to mirror, motion of 40,000.
do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor? It's unanimous, thank you. Who wants to write the rationale?
Yeah, Dennis.
Okay, thank you.
So where's the
I was
funding?
giving you a chance to back up.
So where's the funding coming?
Back it up.
It comes from the PEG funds, which are basically come from the cable companies, which come from a surcharge on cable customers. So that if you have cable, there's a surcharge on your bill
Everybody paid that.
that goes to Comcast or
No, not
Verizon.
everybody pays it.
They then send it
Not
to.
me.
Okay, so those who are customers, if you're not cordless, you pay. This is a great thing to get involved in because it's a great introduction to a lot of the revolving funds and stuff like that, where there's sources of money that are out there that, you know, they get accounted for, then they get used. You know, so I see this as a great exercise.
Thank you.
So,
There would be a rationale from last time,
Yeah,
correct?
yeah,
Right,
yeah.
so we could maybe.
Yeah, right, but all I'm pointing out to anyone is that, don't think you're out there on your own when you're doing rationales. And in fact, it's very helpful to go to the people that are actually involved in originating these requests. To be very helpful in writing rationale, that's all I'm saying.
All right.
so those, the aggregate of surcharges each year is on a downward sloping curve.
Significant downward
So
slope.
Dennis is gonna plug the holes.
And that's because people just have less and less cable and more
Right,
streaming and stuff like that.
Right, yeah.
People like Rick and Wendy are
More
proud
people
of
just
that.
don't have cable.
Proud of
All you modern folk.
But in fairness, there's a balance of $259,000.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not like they're gonna run it dry quick.
Right, no,
Right.
that's what I kind of.
And
So are you both generally in favor of what Angus proposed?
I don't know. I don't know what staff position means, I don't know what it means, what it.
Yeah, I
I'm not
Roger
asking
that.
for
Yeah,
decision, I'm just
yeah,
asking for
yeah,
feedback,
yeah.
I've given him feedback, I just wanna make sure.
Yeah,
Do you want him to
proposal, I
invest,
can't-
do you want him to invest time to come up?
He's already done some of that.
So I'm obviously not gonna get an answer out of.
No, there's no answer to be given, because I don't have any information.
Well, I think,
Whatever it's
Wendy,
worth.
I believe.
For whatever it's worth, is this on our agenda?
No.
So are you the chair now?
I'm asking the chair.
Well, but I believe it's related, because it goes to the expenses that we're approving, and we're moving it to a different source, I think it's fair.
I do think when it comes time to having the motion. And possibly the article, I think it should, if the intent is to have a certain amount of PEG funds explicitly under the oversight of the CAC. And a certain amount not,
Right.
that should be articulated in the.
There should be a path
in the
forward.
warrant.
Yeah, there should be a path forward that people understand.
Yeah, yeah,
That was my point about how interesting this can be.
Mhm.
It's an example of, I mean, we have other places where funding exists where it's unclear who's really driving the bus.
Mhm.
They're getting less, fewer and fewer.
Good,
Yeah.
great, you're doing wonderful work, thank you very much.
All right, Article 11. Wait, did you vote? Yes, you did.
Yeah.
Article 11.
Yeah, we actually signed it up.
3 times now.
We voted two
Yeah, we
articles.
voted, yeah.
We should
Which
rescind.
vote are you referring to?
Revolving funds.
revolving funds, I'm not proposing any changes to the amounts. These are, I think everyone knows, these are funds that are entirely coming in from an outside source and expended from that source. It's nothing out of the taxpayer budget, and this sets the cap of the amount that can be expended from any of those funds over the course of the fiscal year.
Is the summer recreation adequate?
I think so, yeah, it's been,
You're not pressing up against it, right?
I don't think so. No, we were at, I mean, we were at, 69.5, but there's no change, they didn't change the fees. And they didn't change the enrollment, so it's probably gonna be very similar numbers
similar,
next year.
So on the Mill Pond, what is the source of the funds for that? They don't collect fees or anything, right?
Only
Is it-
if someone reserves the cap,
Oh.
so it's like a few bucks, it's really not.
All right.
And I don't know if we have reports for every, oh yeah, here it is, yeah, so they got $150 of revenue the last 5 years, yeah. So probably the Boy Scouts did it overnight. or something.
What is the authorized for the Parks and Rec, what is the authorization now?
For summer rec,
Yeah,
it's
summer rec.
75,000.
Yeah, okay.
So on Mill Pond, if they have a balance of 5,000, are there limitations on what they can spend that on?
Yeah. Yeah, the town bylaws define all of the revolving funds.
In that first,
Oh, it's
I'm
in
just
the-
wondering, you said it was almost gone, the revolving fund.
It was about
What was on that?
No, I mean, when you looked at the summary, Angus, yeah. I thought you just had a table that showed the expenditures.
Yeah, but well, first I want to address what it can be used for.
Okay.
Okay, so pipe save Mill Pond for the maintenance improvements of the grounds and facilities.
So,
Money's collected for rental of the Mill Pond facilities, donations and any other source. And then. Balance, yeah, $4,300.
so the play core is the benches that they purchased, right?
The
No.
play core.
The other fund that's similar to this, but not part of this, the Park and Rec Fund,
Mhm.
fees from the athletic. How is that flowing through? Where does that stand? Did they turn back the money that was over $10,000?
Yes. Yeah.
But how does that affect what we're gonna?
So interestingly, because that was under a different statute,
Exactly.
it doesn't, that's the
It's not
only
in
revolving fund that actually doesn't
Right,
go to
and the
town
only thing
meeting
about it is it can't exceed $10,000.
at the end of the fiscal year.
Right,
Yeah,
But it gets applied, used how?
It gets applied, used for basically, a combination of routine expenses to do with, field maintenance preparation. So for instance, bring in, the vendor who prepares the baseball diamonds and relines and drags.
So basically, when you look at
So-
Park and Rec budget, you don't see that amount at all because it's covered, so the
Correct.
Park and Rec budget is actually, there's a gross amount.
Yeah,
But then we authorize something below the gross amount because they have funds. Of
correct.
their own to pay for it, right? I just
Absolutely. Yeah.
point that out as another interesting thing.
Yeah, and it is interesting, and we have now really good insight over the last couple of years of the amounts of monies and where they're coming from, because now we're pushing all the field use reservations and payments through the MyRec platform.
Good,
So Caitlin Barker is able to do reports, and we're able to see how much money is coming from baseball.
and you've kind of ironed that out.
Well, not quite yet.
Not
We-
quite, but
The
you're
commission
getting there.
still hasn't voted a new fee structure.
They voted to keep it the same.
The fee amount, but
Yeah.
the policy that we
Yeah.
drafted and been working on for quite a while, they haven't, did they vote that Friday?
No, because Wendy wasn't there.
Okay.
So, but
So-
one thing is they did vote to use fees to cover the fertilizer for pipe save, which has come out of the DPW budget.
Yeah,
But
right,
this is,
right.
I think a good way to tell the lacrosse, for example, that this is what your fees. are.
Yeah, exactly, yeah, no, this is all, I mean, right, and Angus has done so much work here. As you all do, and sometimes it's. You're swimming against.
Yeah, they also use it to support, expenses, like there's some, work that needed to be done last year at the snack shack.
Right.
And there's some work coming up ahead with the snack shack, as well as some new fencing that's needed at the, Bachelor Street Fields. And, so Brian, Richard, now, once we did the restructure a couple of years ago, Brian, Richard and Caitlin Barker are now, supporting Park and Rec to some degree.
Yeah.
Not full-time, of course, but some of their job is toward that. So Brian helps, talks to the chair and scopes out like what they need, and then he goes and costs it out and gets proposals, and then he comes to the commission. And then they authorize a certain amount of money for him to fix the fences, for instance, or fix the roof at the snack shack. And those are projects that have been paid out of the revolving fund.
Right, so that's always there and it's good, and it sounds like it's maybe going a little bit better than what.
Yeah, I mean, it's like 2 steps forward, 1 step back, but it's definitely
Yep.
going better, definitely. Yeah, the commission, the chair is great, and my rec is great, Caitlin and Brian do an awesome job, for their part.
So just to go back to the mill pond, so they could use the revolving fund to purchase the benches or the picnic tables that they put in the budget.
Mhm.
Right, if there is actually a $4,000 balance then.
That's a good number, yeah, mostly from January 22nd, there's certainly not been activity in there since then.
Yeah, okay. All right, where are we?
Need
We
motion.
need a motion. Do I have to itemize the dollars or just say per the article request?
Just article request.
Make a motion, reauthorize and establish, the maximum amounts for fiscal year 25 of the revolving funds as presented.
26, you mean, right?
I'm sorry, yes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So, go ahead.
I make a motion to reauthorize and establish the maximum amounts for fiscal 25 and revolving funds as presented. Second.
All in favor? Aye, unanimous. Who would like to do the rationale of this revolving fund, which is very similar to the.
That's you, Dennis.
Excuse me? No one? Okay, all right.
I'll do it.
Oh, okay.
Dan's not here, you can start assigning stuff.
Wait, who was
No, we're saving
Dennis.
Dennis.
Okay.
Dennis, thank you. Dennis.
Probably the same rationale from the last packet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right, Article 12, CPA article.
The peg's gonna be a little bit different though. As they pointed out.
Breakdown on that.
Yep.
This one's recurring too, right? This is similar to last.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's an annual.
Different numbers each year.
Yeah, what number was that? So,
Number 13,
12.
12, sorry.
Aren't the numbers in a way kind of boilerplate?
The percentages, I
They're
think,
not.
are.
Yeah,
The percentages, that's what I mean.
Yeah, percentages.
Percentages are, right?
Yeah, it's 10% and for
Right.
each of the
Right,
three.
right, right.
Yeah.
We get X 10%, 10%, 10%.
Right, yeah, right, that's what I meant.
And at the time this article request came in, it hadn't been voted, but the CPC has since voted to approve this request.
Okay. Right. Any questions from the
how much, do you know roughly how much of that was the, the bonus match that we get for having our CPA at the maximum rate?
Yeah, it's always lagging. I mean, I can look at the CP plan.
I haven't done that, I don't, big deal, I just thought we might know.
How much was the match this year?
The bonus, the third round,
We didn't get one.
Oh, there wasn't one.
There wasn't one.
Okay.
there was a second round, though, right?
We got one.
Yeah.
Yeah, one, the first one, and that was it, in November.
One.
And then we did not get a second round. And
$1.
Because there's so many municipalities now that are participating.
Yeah, so we
That's
got
the issue.
46% match total from the state
Really?
this year.
46%.
Yeah, but most years, I mean, some years it's been 100%, or
Right.
70, 85, 96, so,
Yeah.
it's just less revenues.
Yeah, thanks.
Well, it's less houses being sold and that's where the revenue comes.
Right, yeah.
All right, anything else on this?
Motion to allocate annual reserve community preservation funds and the annual reserves per the article request.
Second.
All those in favor?
Right.
Aye.
Make a motion to accept the CPA article allocated in a reserve community preservation act annual revenues as presented in the warrant article.
Second. All in favor? It's unanimous.
I can write this one.
Thank you, Jim. Appreciate it. And
Right,
and that, you know what that leads to?
Only because I wrote it last year.
Yeah, right. No, but it also leads, Jim writes all the CPA ones, or at least he has to date, so there you go.
Article 13, transfer of housing reserve funds to the housing trust. Questions on that?
It's a 10%, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I think the article request, it was updated.
It was
Did you update
10%
that?
from the last.
Yeah, 10%.
This just goes into a special fund within the Affordable Housing Trust. It has to be all tracked and accounted for separately.
And so unlike the prior article, which was kind of an authorization, this is actually a transfer.
Right.
It's not an expenditure, that technically it's just going in.
Goes to the trust,
But at that point, it's under the trust.
trust control.
Authority, yeah.
And ballpark, how much is in that from now?
So I was gonna ask you.
In the trust?
Yeah.
About 300,000, something like that. That also includes, the open space.
The payment in lieu.
Yeah, do you have that, Jenny, or do you?
I do, so we have, it's broken out in two sections on here, so the CPA restricted portion is 233,000. And the balance in the trust is 344 and change. 344,000.
So.
So 500 total?
344 total.
No, between the two, there's,
Over six.
yeah, almost, it's 570.
Yeah, 570.
So that doesn't show up on our accounting, our monthly accounting report. Is that because we're not seeing the CPA portion?
I have not, she doesn't copy me, so I don't see what she sent. You send it to me, what she
Sure.
sent you, and I'll make sure
That's interesting.
you're
I thought
getting,
we had
yeah.
much less than that.
Okay.
So the total now is 570 something?
577.
Yeah, so we're basically sure that with this will be 650,000. Or
So-
just over.
So Wendy and or Angus, so what's the, like, the vision for that money? Like what's
The vision is to actually create some affordable housing. So we have a 3-year action plan and the 3rd year is FY 26. That's to create at least 1 unit. So that might be paying a portion of maybe the MBTA development
Yeah,
or creating.
that sort of go into like something like that.
Yeah, and we also just got a grant to do a feasibility study for the development of the Mullen property and updated one
Cool.
to see what could be built there.
Okay,
So if you go to the Affordable Housing Trust webpage, there's quite a bit of information about one document that's really key is this 3-year action plan that Wendy mentioned that they put a lot of thought into and have been following pretty closely. So there's a lot more specifics in there.
excellent, okay.
Yeah, there's a financial plan if you keep going. At the end, just a table that shows the.
Right.
And one potential in MBTA communities would be to essentially subsidize additional housing, additional affordable housing as opposed to.
Over and above what the developer's doing, like.
Yeah.
Over the 10%.
Yeah, to buy down some units.
Excellent.
Right, so make it 20%, not 10%.
So we gotta get busy if we're gonna be down to 7,000 at the end of next year. Right, did we vote? Sorry.
Make a motion to transfer CPA housing reserve funds to the Affordable Housing Trust in the sum of $76,000.
All in favor?
Right.
I make a motion to exactly use the same words that Chris did. $76,000 to CPA reserve funds to Affordable Housing Trust. Transfer, that's the key word.
Second, Dennis, thank you. All in favor? It's unanimous,
It's gonna be a healthy balance.
and what I would recommend, and Jim,
Yeah, I can write this.
thanks, appreciate it. These don't need sunset dates, do they?
Mhm. All right, Article 32, comprehensive plan funding.
So the select board will be talking about this a little bit more tomorrow. Basically, the idea is, you know, the board made a commitment last summer or fall that now that we're kind of cleared the decks of the housing production plan, the hazard mitigation plan, we're underway with the open space and recreation plan, a lot of the kind of corollary plans. You know, the made a commitment to initiate a comprehensive planning process is really long overdue. The last plan was 1999, but it's a major effort, and to do it properly, it takes just an enormous amount of time and effort. So we haven't wanted to start something we couldn't really finish, and we do still have a lot active that we want to kind of clear the decks, but we want to start moving toward initiating that process. And we identified a grant, this state one-stop grant, that comprehensive plans are an eligible expense under that. So I'm working with the town planner right now on an expression of interest. We have a draft in the board's packet tomorrow night. It's very lean because of the parameters. It's going to be limited to 500 characters. It's not much meat to it.
Including spaces, right?
Yeah, it's crazy, but one of the, so what's proposed here is kind of my guesstimate of what 10% might be, although I think the market is probably more like 150 for a comp plan, but I just think in this community with the level of engagement, the number of committees, and my vision for it would be that some of the very specific issues that we've worked on, I would love to see a comp plan really go deeper on, such as water, such as pipe stave done, that kind of, there, you know, like area specific plans. And I think if we're gonna get that level of work, I think 175 is probably not out of line. Typically, in my experience, comp plans take 2 to 3 years of pretty intensive effort.
That's what it did last time.
Yeah, and it needs to have the feedback loops and to have the level of engagement and buy-in. Because it's only worthwhile if it comes out with broad support, because otherwise you don't have the political will to actually implement. So I do have some concerns that I've shared with the board in their packet tomorrow night. As to this grant, it is enticing to be able to potentially get 6 figures of state funding, but I've learned some more just in the last few days. If we apply for it, the funds have to be fully expended by June 30th of 2020. 2027, it's like a year and a half, which is just a disservice, in my opinion, to the process. And I don't want to get on a River Road thing where we had to do 20 months of work in 9 months like that. We do not want to be in that situation. So I do want, tomorrow night, we'll have more of a discussion of, do we want to go after the grant? One thing that Katrina had, I thought, a very good suggestion. She researched what some other towns have done with this grant. Some towns have gone after 2 different grants, one for an initial, basically, visioning process as a standalone project, and then to basically spread it out by getting 2 grants. I think that merits some thought.
Yeah.
So we talk more tomorrow, but the gist of it is we want to get going down this road, and rather than propose local funding of the full 6-figure cost of doing a comp plan, the idea is to get 90% of that paid by a state grant.
And they're not limiting you to vendor choice?
No. And in any case, I mean, I know who you're thinking, and she's certainly on the pre-qualified vendor list.
He knows what I'm thinking.
No, I'm
Who were you
thinking-
before?
No, I'm thinking, when we did the downtown, review on the planning board, it was atrocious.
Hmm.
They had said, you will engage this person was working throughout the state,
Hmm.
and what we got was pure crap.
Mhm.
And that's what I'm reacting to, I just didn't want it to be something like that, I mean. I didn't-
No, yeah.
What would the source of funding be for our?
Free cash is what I would propose.
Okay, so I make a motion to expend from free cash the comprehensive plan funding, 17,500 with the matching grant. Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So, we've got in front of us 17,500 for comprehensive matching funds. Anybody want to make a motion?
I make a motion to, expend up to $17,500, for comprehensive plan funding, grant matching fund.
Second.
All in favor? So, who's going to write the rationale? I'll write the rationale if no one else is interested, and does this need a sunset date?
It would, and I would suggest a healthy 3-year, like June 30th, 2028. Because especially if we do we might not get the grant,
Right, you'd want to keep it open.
Yeah.
Yeah, you might need to take a second pass at it, whatever.
Yeah, and it's a relatively small amount of money, so it's not tying up money and,
Yeah, right.
So.
Sunset dates are an interesting concept. So, we're done with this, what's next?
Well, I'm sorry, who was doing the rationale?
I'm doing the
Right.
rationale.
Yeah, so I think that's then what we had tonight. The only remaining thing I believe on the agenda is for the FinCom to give some thought to the proposed bylaw articles. On
Yeah,
this,
can you show those?
yeah,
Show those?
yeah, on the schedule that I passed around earlier.
And basically, the question was, Angus and I talked about this briefly. Is as you look at those, there's 5 of them. The question is there any that we might not want to take up? That is, we would do our typical, you've seen us do it in the past where we kind of say, it's the will of the town is how people phrase it shorthand. So we have a way we write it.
I think you're missing the right farm one on there.
Well, so Rob is pretty solid on the idea that both the right to farm and the MBTA communities are things that
Yeah.
he expects the FinCom is
Oh.
likely to
Oh,
weigh in.
I have decided, if we want to have a discussion about MBTA and right to farm.
Okay.
These are real.
We were putting these 5
Yeah.
in front
Okay.
now. We'll see as we go through things, because we don't know all that much about either MBTA or right to farm right now, but these 5 are the ones that arguably are the closest to where we might not want to weigh in. And so, to me, there is an issue of, well, at some point you have to weigh in a little bit in order to know what you're deciding not to weigh in on.
Mhm.
So, well, how do you guys want to proceed on these five, not the other two that are, I think, are going to entail some discussion, even if we decide eventually not to do anything.
And Rob, if I could just add one point, so part of why Rob and I wanted to get this pinned down tonight. Right now, I've penciled these in for March 20th, that is not a FinCom meeting date, that's a regular select board meeting date. So if you decided you did want to weigh in on one or more of these, we would put
Have to
on a
move
joint
someplace
meeting
else.
date.
So
So if you're not gonna, we take it up with the board.
So do you want a very brief rundown of what each of these is getting at? Like ADU bylaw amendments are to put us in sync with the state law.
Mhm.
So we will be changing stuff that we are forced to change in order to comply with the state law.
In the bylaw that we already have.
And the bylaw we already have, which is actually a better bylaw than what the state requires us to have. Animal bylaw amendments, I still think that's one that we may not want to, we may want to weigh in. Oh, that's the dog, okay. So on the dog one, briefly explain the dog one.
So these are, kind of interim changes to just change the, requirement that dogs have to be under immediate voice recall instead of just control. And to limit the number of dogs off leash to 2, to try to get some control of the number of
So
dogs.
it's dealing with a couple of issues that have been presented to the town by the animal control officer.
Actually, along with a group of people that use the pond with their dogs off leash all the time and want to preserve that.
In addition to the more housekeeping changes that the board had proposed last spring,
Right.
so what Wendy's referring to is over and above the changes that were considered last spring.
The floodplain bylaw amendment is really just reflecting what is.
The updated flood.
Yeah, it's just so that's
housekeeping.
that's
Yeah.
pure housekeeping.
Yeah.
Large battery storage system, is to address the issue that we don't have such a bylaw. Is that anything that we need to know a little bit more about? I mean, who is it directed at and who does it impact?
So is that the building inspector there with the responsible sponsors?
He's initiated it and he's kind of a subject matter expert on it.
Yeah, Sam is great at the stuff he does. So who's this end up being directed at? Is it something that is purely about very large capacity?
My understanding, and I think Rick, you know more about it than I do, but I think there's more, energy pricing is more or less depending on time of day, and I think there's a trend toward more, is it energy, like utilities that are wanting to have energy storage so that they can
Right.
basically buy it when it's cheaper.
Yeah, so my question would be, is this directed at
But it's
consumers
currently
or?
not, it's currently not
No,
regulated.
it's not directed
Right,
at
exactly.
consumers,
So-
it's directed at,
Utilities.
sort of industrial scale.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But right now, it's not regulated.
It's
so
not
Sam
regulated, it needs
feels
to be
that's a
regulated,
Kind of a potential
In
exposure,
fact,
he wants to make
what
sure.
Angus said is they're putting in place batteries solely to continue electricity when there's power outages and stuff like that.
Yeah, there's a bunch of, there's arbitrage, you buy cheap, sell high, then, and there's also grid stability.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, they did it down and outside of P-Town where they got 2 towns that can run electricity for multiple hours off of a battery. So this is directed at industrial, we don't have protection in town. It's not gonna really be a consumer issue, that's what I was getting at.
That's right.
And it's not gonna lead to, the town having to spend money on battery storage anywhere along the line.
No,
That's.
it's to tell utilities how to behave.
Well, unless we're deciding.
Yeah, unless we want to
There
do
may
it.
come a time where we decide we wanna do it for our own sake.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
then again, we're not subject to
but
zoning,
that's
we're
not-
not subject to zoning,
Yeah.
so it wouldn't apply to us. Then stormwater bylaw amendments,
I'll know about that.
so stormwater bylaw amendments,
So these are, I would say housekeeping, but there's some more substance to it. Since we did the bylaw a couple of years ago, which was, we were required to do under our EPA stormwater permit. we made a number of changes administratively. We've shifted the stormwater granting authority was the planning board. But the bylaw allows them to delegate that. They have since delegated that to the Board of Health, which is now the stormwater bylaw authority in practice and by vote of the planning board, but the bylaw still references the planning board. It's working well. The Board of Health had more bandwidth, more staffing to administer this, so it's worked well. But one of the changes would be to codify that in the bylaw to make the Board of Health stormwater authority. There's some other administrative issues that have come up in the enforcement and permitting of the bylaw that's been a little messy. And so we've had an active stormwater working group with a number of staff members as well as some consultant support to basically make the bylaw administratively better. And so there's a lot of like details in there. It's actually still under review. The draft that's in the packet is something that the Board of Health is still working on. We talked about it at the staff meeting this morning. So it's more than housekeeping, but it's not, I don't think there's anything significant policy wise. I do think the select board is going to be interested and you know, we'd be happy to have Sam present it to a joint meeting. I think of all of these, it's, you know, I mean, it depends how much you want to get into land use issues.
So the question before you is there anything there that you want to make sure gets presented to us? Is there anything there that you would say, I don't think we need to take that up? We may not be able to say that until you get presented with stuff, but we thought we would ask.
I think those are more geared, like I'm interested in as a resident,
Right.
as a part of the finance committee, I don't know that, you know, I would feel like I need to weigh in on these. To Dennis's point, I mean, the one that just, I guess, somewhat, I think has some
Yeah.
financial ramification is the battery storage one, right? I mean, I just think that could be a pretty major deal, right? And yeah.
So you'd like to comment?
Yeah, I mean, I think
Yeah.
longer term, that could really have some impact in town, you know.
Sure, yeah.
Financially.
You know, it is interesting that, I hadn't thought about that, but just in terms of, personal property tax, you know, excise tax. You know, so currently, currently there's valuation, you know, in fact, there was revaluation 2 or 3 years ago of all the utility structures in town. If, you know, if, I'm assuming that if a battery storage system is put in at utility scale, I mean, that could be easily could easily be a $10 or $20 million project.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Right, well, yeah, but you're also speaking to the fact that we'd hate to see something like that not pass if it would be of concrete value to the residents. Yours aside, and yours is an easy one, it could be, oh, we'll get some taxes, but I thought when Jim was starting.
Value and
Yeah, both, you're gonna get both, so.
Yeah, I mean,
right.
yeah, it's because it would still have the, you know, and the sort of grid stabilization effect here.
Yeah.
And, you know, I mean, it would.
Yeah, this is important, this could be very
I think it's
important.
very important.
So how about the ADU bylaw, the annual animal dog bylaw? The floodplain and the stormwater, are those 4 that we think that it's okay not to have presented to us, but the select board can take it up on its own meetings? We would just kind of do a will of the people, but what Angus and I also discussed is we would explain what decision they're taking. In other words, we would still in our book write up what the decision is, it's just that we've elected not to weigh
Yeah, if
in.
anyone wants to come to the select board meeting,
Yeah.
you know, it's hybrid and that's most welcome
Yeah.
and encouraged. We were really partly looking to just try to try to thin out some of the agendas.
Yeah. So are we in agreement that 4 of them we could thin out and we would keep for sure the battery? And then we will still have the ability to hear about the right to farm and the MBTA, because I think that.
Yeah, those are big.
Yeah, right, those are big too. So is that okay?
Yeah.
As a decision?
Yeah, I like it. Yeah, I like what Dennis said. Yeah, I'm interested as a resident, but less so as a FinCom.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Good, okay, good. So we're good with those. Is that good? Is that the
Yeah,
agenda now?
perfect.
Yeah.
Okay,
Sure.
you happy? Great, yeah. Everybody,
Didn't wait for me to answer.
well, I saw Chris was doing something over there, so I figured I'd get out
I'm
of it.
sitting here, doing something.
So for next Thursday's meeting, I will be posting stuff to Dropbox by the end of this week. And I'll let everyone know in case you don't get it that way, I can email you to you, but I know tonight you didn't get much ahead of time. So for next week,
Yeah.
we're starting to get, the degree of difficulty goes up a little bit each week, so I'll make sure.
This was a soft opening.
Yeah.
It worked out
I thought
fine.
this was tough. What do you mean? What's that?
Oh, Rick, come on, you're already forgetting the level of difficulty some of these things present.
Next week.
Thank you very much, that's great. By the way, just so everybody's clear, I'm working with each of the FinCom board members about how to use Dropbox with Max's help. And with Angus's blessing, just both Max and I need to get a proficient at this. And Angus doesn't need to be addressing every single issue that presents itself in town. That's my opinion.
All right.
Angus, you okay with
Yeah, no,
that?
I was actually, I had permission to use Dropbox,
Before.
Well,
Now.
this round, and it was very
Great.
easy.
Good, so anybody who's got it easy, let me know that, I've asked them an email, and anybody's got a difficult, let me know, and we'll respond to that too. Cool.
Second.
So you want to mirror Chris's motion?
We don't care what, just with that.
No, I asked our.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you. So Jim,
All right.
made the motion, seconded it.